Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Dissenter. I'm your host, Ricardo Lopes, and today I have a return guest with me, Dr. Luciano Floridi. He is the founding director of the Digital Ethics Center and professor of cognitive science at Yale University. And today we're focusing on his new book, The Ethics of Artificial Intelligence, Principles, Challenges, and Opportunities. So, Dr. Floridi, welcome back to the show. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, and delighted to be back with you for this new chat online. It's a pleasure.
Okay, so we've already ended up talking a little bit about the ethics of artificial intelligence in our last interview when we applied it basically regarding your previous book to the Sustainable Development Goals. But in this particular case, I would like perhaps to take a step back and ask you, because this is also something that you tackle in this book specifically, how old exactly is the history of AI? I mean, particularly conceptually speaking, how old is the idea of artificial intelligence?
In one way, it is very old. If we look at artificial intelligence in one of its many features or manifestations, which is robotics, then the dream of having robots doing things instead of us, for us, sometimes better than us, you find references in mythology. In fact, there are references in Homer where the god of iron and volcano has created these amazing tripods that go around, and they are essentially artificial agents that serve wine to the gods. They are made of gold and etc. Fast forward, and then many centuries, and of course throughout our history we have a dream of sometimes monsters, sometimes extraordinary, beautiful, amazing, intelligent agents that give us a hand to do more and differently what we cannot do or we don't do too well. There's one point maybe that is worth stressing here, which is since the beginning of our real discussion about AI, something that we were increasingly close to build, imagine 1950, Alan Turing onwards. So for the past 70 years or so, some of these metaphors, some of these analogies have reemerged. But the history of philosophy, especially Western philosophy, is full of ways of trying to understand, for example, the brain as a mechanism, and therefore trying to reproduce the mechanism as if it were an engineered artifact. The brain has been compared to almost anything, any technology at the time, from a windmill or a steam engine, telephone circuits, all the way today to then a laptop, a computer, a quantum computer, and today an artificial neural network. So there is almost like a two ways, in this history, a two ways road. How we understand ourselves in terms of our machines, and how we build machines that can do things for us instead of us, often better than us, so that we don't have to do them. And in these two ways sort of conversation, sometimes there is a lot of confusion, and sometimes there are extraordinary successes when it comes to engineering.
And since we're focusing here today on the ethics of AI specifically, and we're introducing the topic with a little bit of historical background here. So how long have people been worrying about some of the potential negative effects that AI might have on human society? I mean, is this really a very recent area within philosophy or not so much?
Well, philosophy being so old, at least Western philosophy as we know it on this side, it starts with the Greeks. Obviously, depends on what we mean by old. But imagine that to the best of my knowledge, perhaps one of the first cases of real scientific debate, intellectual debate, scholarly debate on the impact of artificial intelligence goes back to 1960, an exchange by Wiener and Samuel, published in Science, the journal. They're very short pieces. Wiener is more pessimistic, more concerned about cybernetics, what will become, of course, known more commonly as robotics, but of course now part of artificial intelligence. And Samuel, who's sometimes considered to be the one who actually made machine learning, the expression, popular, great researcher, one of the sort of pioneers in artificial intelligence, automation of computational tasks, is actually much more optimistic. Both of them contain the seeds of the current debate. Is AI going to be a problem? Let me put it this way: it's going to be part of the problem or part of the solution for all we need. And often people see this as troublesome, but I tend to think that it can easily, if only we did a good job, it could easily be part of the solution. But we need to be more serious, both about what the engineering really means and about ethics and legal frameworks.
And in this case, when it comes to the ethics, I would imagine that philosophers are not only worried about the current state of development of the several different AI technologies and applications out there, but also about how it might potentially evolve and develop in the future, correct?
Indeed, and that is true for any technology. If we had been a little bit more careful, for example, in terms of the development of the automobile industry and mobility in the future, when we started selling cars, perhaps we could have done a better job in terms of traffic, pollution, public transport, the impact of mobility on society, urbanization, etc. We didn't quite think ahead, and today we have problems that we need to solve backwards, so to speak, more expensively, less efficiently. I take the same approach to AI, but the example I provided with the automobile industry, urbanization, mobility, is there to remind us to concentrate on not just real, but realistic sort of scenarios. And unfortunately, I see a lot of people speculating about sci-fi scenarios in which there's a chance in 1 trillion that maybe, well, that is working on logical possibilities that not only are not going to be realized, they're distracting with respect to the real problems. It's almost as if I were to tell you, look, there is a logical possibilities that zombies might actually conquer the world by coming out of graves and cemeteries. And someone said, look, but really, it's not really the case. So, but there's a logical possibility that this might happen. And if it happened, that would be a total disaster. And that's what we need to concentrate on. Logical possibilities are useful to think out of the box, but they're not useful to take any practical step or do anything in terms of policy, ethics, pragmatical approaches. If I were to base my life on the logical possibility that whenever I buy a lottery ticket, I win the lottery, well, that would be foolish. And likewise, it is foolish to be worried about logical possibilities that AI may develop into a super entity, an intelligence of its own, a conscious engineered artifact, which will either be benign or conquer the world, use as a suspense, etc. These are mere speculations. And whenever people say, but there is a chance, it is logically possible that could happen, just remember the lottery ticket. It is logically possible that whenever you buy a lottery ticket, you win that lottery. I wouldn't put my money on it. Likewise, let's not be distracted by the entertaining zombie movies that are circulating these days. Let's remember how much more complex and unknown, for example, even to neuroscientists, the working of the brains are, including the simplest animals, so not just talking the human brain. And be reminded that there are pressing problems right now, right here. To anyone who, and I've got colleagues who say, oh, but yes, this is right. It is not yet the time to worry about super intelligence or AI becoming conscious. I remind them that this is like someone taking the train from where I am in New Haven to New York, asking whether you are going or when are you going to Boston on that train. Not yet is not the answer. Not never. Not now, not tomorrow, not in the future. We just took a different train. The train that we took is good engineering of artifacts that solve problems that until yesterday we thought required intelligence, the humankind, to be solved. Tasks that until yesterday we thought that required human intelligence to be taken care of. As of today, the true miracle is that we are discovering more and more, and the sky is the limit, that there is so much that you can achieve successfully at zero intelligence. That is the extraordinary thing that we are witnessing today, how we handle that zero intelligence, but amazingly and increasingly successful agency. That's what the book is about.
Mm-hmm. And so tell us about the 5 principles for ethical AI that you present in the book, namely beneficence, non-maleficence, autonomy, justice, and explicability. I mean, tell us about each of them, and why do you think these are perhaps the most important principles to orient ethical AI systems?
I will answer the question, but I will not spoil the pleasure of the reader to discover who is who. But let me give some answer so that there is perhaps a curiosity to go and read that particular chapter. Mm-hmm. Those 5 principles, 4 of them are very common in bioethics. They're classics, so to speak. And the reason why they we found out with research done by my research group, myself, but in particular in this case with Josh Cowles, who led this piece of research a long time ago when we were in Oxford. So what we discovered, Josh, the rest of the group, myself, was that if you look at all the available, and there are many, there are more than 120, 130, I lost count because it's no longer interesting, sets of principles developed by a variety of entities, the OECD, the European Union, a single company, an organization, an NGO, etc., etc. If you take all those principles and all these blocks of principles, and as I said, there's a website that lists them, and it's more than 120 or 30, what you find is that despite the superficial differences in vocabulary, well, pretty much not even deep down, but almost immediately, you can see that there's a lot of repetition. They're the same things I've said again and again in different words, but the meaning is, well, those are the basic principles of good agency. Now, good agency has been studied in bioethics for a long, long time. So we discovered that essentially you can reduce all those principles to 4 plus 1. And here's the little bit that I want to add. Say, why not a complete overlap between the principles grounding the ethics of AI and the principles grounding bioethics? Well, because in bioethics, we assume, I don't know whether that is justified or not, but we take it for granted that you don't need to impose some explicability, explainability, subtle difference, but not for today, to the agents you're working with. They either have goals, like a dog wants to find the bones, or an organism tries to survive, or they have intentionality, like human beings, plans, desires, emotions, past memories, lessons learned, etc. So essentially in bioethics, there seems to be less need to require as an ethical principle the explicability that instead in AI, because we build these systems, they are so complex that they detail working escapes a fine description, nothing magic, it's just what every complex system always does. well, we need to require that not only the benevolence, no maleficence, etc., but also another concept would be called some transparency. Like we need to know how this mechanism works according to what sort of requirements, so that we can fix it if it doesn't work, we can stop it if we don't like the way it works, or we can improve it if we can do better. Now, just one word about this, because again, the debate about this seems to be polluted by some disinformation. When people say, oh, but these are black boxes, we cannot, no, so like it's impossible to look inside and tell how did they reach their conclusion. Well, this is really too approximate to be true. Obviously not. No, these are engineered artifacts. What we're saying here is that if you would like a causal report about every single component node in the network and how that component, for example, contributed to the final decision, well, that is impossible. But let me use an analogy here and I'll stop there. Imagine a different kind of context. It's Monday morning, it's rainy, we are in New York, and there's a lot of traffic. And I ask you to give me an explanation of why every single driver, every single car is right there, right at that stage in the development of its journey. And you say, like, look, Luciano, this is impossible. I mean, this, but not impossible as in a magic. It's just too much to compute. Why Peter, Mary, Laura, John are there. But suppose you stand back and say, well, there's traffic because lots of people are there. It's Monday morning, it's raining, schools have opened, office time, and look, there's some traffic and there's some work in progress on that tunnel or the underground. People are striking. There's an explanation, and it's as good as it is needed. I don't need to know why Peter and Mary are there in that moment. All I need is, if I want to avoid it and fix it, like change, for example, the time when the schools open and the office is open. Boom. Or make sure that the traffic has a different flow, etc. So back to us, complex systems have components that we cannot predict in terms of their behavior. Of course, that is true in physics, even of the three-body problem. For anyone who wants to check on Wikipedia, 3 bodies. You don't need millions. Already 3 bodies interacting with each other is already a mathematical difficulty. Imagine the rest. But that doesn't mean that therefore we don't know how they work, what they can do, what they cannot do, and therefore how we can regulate them. They work within a space of problems. The last analogy I want to share with you now is your large language model that produces or can help to do X, Y, and Z will not make coffee unless you train that large language model to help you to, say, schedule your coffee in the morning. But then there will be the problem. Unless. So my Roomba cleans the floor, but does not cut the grass. So when we say that they are also boundless in terms of their tasks, boundless within a very precise sort of area of problem solving, absolutely, but not as in I could do all this. I can cut the grass, I can make the coffee, and I can actually write the next paper. That is a different kind of boundless from the actually very precise boundless activity that can happen in a sort of problem space that is addressed by X, Y, and Z.
So at a certain point in the book, you talk about the governance of AI and you distinguish between soft and hard ethics. So why do you establish that distinction and why do you think it's important?
Thank you. I really have to thank you about this. And whoever is going to join us in this conversation must know that we did not agree about this question before, but it's a profound, important question for which I'm very, very grateful. Thank you for the opportunity to expand on this point. I don't know, because the world is a big world and libraries and files all over the world. I don't know if I'm the first one to talk about soft ethics, and I don't mind. That is not the point. The point is that we need that distinction. So if anyone else has invented that distinction before, I'm happy to follow. If not, it doesn't matter because we need it. We need it in the same way as we need that distinction, very clear, common in law, in law, and I'm now going to introduce it, in law you have soft law and what is not soft, which they don't call it hard, basically law and soft law, or legislation and soft legislation, or recommendations that are binding, meaning that if you don't do it, something nasty is going to happen. Okay, so imagine I give you a strict regulation about driving on the motorway. Well, you don't stop at the traffic light. That is, no, you're not complying with the regulations. Get a ticket, you may even go to prison or whatever. Mm-hmm. Now, a soft sort of recommendation, say in a context that we all know in terms of rain, would be like, no, if you see that it's raining, be more cautious, okay? Because the road might be slippery. But as soft, I can still drive at the speed limit. It would be not very intelligent. It would be a bit reckless sometimes, but that doesn't mean that I'm not complying with a hard piece of regulation. It's up to me, okay? Now, this happens all the time, for example, at the level of the United Nations, at the level of the Council of Europe. These organizations issue quite regularly soft law, soft recommendations of what would be a better world if only people could do this and this and that. And it's good to have it. I mean, it's not just empty words, because you prepare the ground, you keep people aware that this would be the right thing to do. Imagine again, rainy day, slow down, don't go at the maximum speed limit, it might be dangerous. Ethics. Well, in ethics, we are used to the hard ethics. Now, the ethics that we study is normally the sort of ethic that says, you should do this, you should not do that. So the question that we ask is, what is should, is who should I be, for example, in terms of my virtues or vices? Mm-hmm. What should I do? Why should I do it? Now, there is three fundamental questions are behind a lot of the ethical discussions. Who should I be? What should I do? Why should I do it? They're not in terms of, it would be nice if you could, sort of soft ethics. Now, when you come to the ethics of AI, for example, there's going to be soon some hard legislation. It will require compliance. But they also request that are as soft as the soft regulation that you might get, or soft recommendations in other contexts. So, for example, one may say, look, of course, you are allowed to use this algorithm to, say, manage your return on investment or your relations with customers. But if you can, it would be nice to have someone either in the loop or on the loop to make sure that when, not if, but when something goes wrong, the redressing is as quick as possible. Well, it may not be required by law, but a company that does that, it's ahead of the pack. Likewise, imagine that there's a context where in a defense system, like, of course, there's plenty of regulations and hard regulations, but it might be also a nice to have. It would be preferable if you could, for example, provide instant information in terms of, or as quick as possible, to AI systems, so that the feedback internally to, say, a peace mission works more efficiently. Well, there's no requirement. I mean, it's not by law, but it's a soft recommendation that makes a big difference. So you can increase the number of potential soft ethics requests, not requirements. Why it is important, and I close here, because sometimes we don't have regulations. And for quite a while, we haven't had a clear regulation in terms of use of drones in urban context. But obviously, if you use a drone with your neighbor and you start spying on your neighbor, well, there may be no law that forbids you from doing that, maybe, but surely in terms of ethics, no. So it might not be you should not do that the hard way, but surely is you better not. So sometimes there is no regulation. Sometimes regulations at all. Sometimes regulations need to be interpreted. So what is the best way of behaving in this context where the law is quite ambiguous? For example, OpenAI has used a lot of databases that we have later discovered contain copyrighted material. Well, once they discover that, I mean, the debate is still open, legally speaking, but ethically, I mean, it's quite clear what the answer is. Like, you shouldn't do it. Of course, it's a soft ethics sort of. So the way, now back to us, the way I describe soft ethics is the kind of ethics that is post-compliance. So if you work in a context where the law is good enough, ethically speaking, so you don't need ethically to fight the law, and we have been there, from Socrates onwards, we have taken ethical stance against the law when the law was wrong. Apartheid, for example, the Nazi, discrimination, etc. Even in this country, where I'm speaking from, you sit on that side of that bus because it is not right to discriminate between people just in terms of the color of their skin. And you start a whole revolution in this country in terms of equal rights, etc. So sometimes you need the hard ethics, the one that fights against the law. And that's the ethics that we normally study at school, at university, is the one that Kant would describe as pereat mundus. May the world end, but this is the right thing to do. Yes, but that's not the whole job. There is a post-compliance. When the law is correct, is fine, you say, yeah, that's, imagine, regulations on the road when you drive, to go back to another. What more and better and extra can I do if I want to do the right thing? Is it compliance good enough? And of course, the answer is no. I just follow the law. Yeah, but there was so much more they could have done, or so much less they could have done, even if the law was allowing you to do it. Remember, going at the speed limit when it's rainy, foggy, maybe there's snow around, right? That is reckless. Oh, but the law says this is the speed limit. Well, but you should still not do it. So when there's no regulations, but regulations needs to be interpreted, there are gaps or vagueness, etc. And what more can be done over and above compliance? So soft ethics is all this when we live in a society where the rules of the game are quite okay, but there's so much more that you can do above the rules in order to interpret the rules, or to do less than the rules actually allow you.
So I would like to go now through two different examples that I think are very illustrative of specific cases, applications, let's say, where we really need to be careful about the ethics of AI. One of them has to do with a particular kind of AI technology that already exists and people have been worrying a lot about, but perhaps just because it's not set up in a way according to certain ethical principles as the ones you propose in the book, in your book, for example, it might many times be unintentionally unethical. And then the second example, it's always, I mean, with nefarious intentions and goals in mind. But to get to the first one, then talking about algorithms themselves, so what are the main issues that they raise?
I think we can divide them into two kind of blocks to simplify. Some of the issues are kind of old because they are exacerbated by algorithms, but they've been with us for some time in this digital ethics context. Privacy is one of them. Algorithm can increase the erosion of privacy, breach of privacy. If we had a problem in the past when there were no algorithms or AI around, can you imagine today, or say tomorrow, when we are going to spend some time in a metaverse interacting with artificial agents? And it's not science fiction. This is something that we're already doing today. It's off-the-shelf technology. So privacy is a typical case of quote-unquote old problems, in terms of digital ethics. They've been with us for decades. They are modified, increased, exacerbated, but it's not that we don't know what we're talking about. Like, you'll say, okay, well, we've seen this, for example, with the big debate about data ethics in the past, GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, and so. Also, we have already some law. You see where we're going with this. Mm-hmm. Then there's the other block. So this is just an example of several of this sort of prompt discrimination as a typical other case. This is a case that is on the newspaper, so I'm not breaching any particular confidential agreement. But when Amazon tried to automate the hiring process, they tried again and again, and they just couldn't make these algorithms work in a way that is not biased, to discover that basically the bias was in the data. So if you say, oh, no, the AI is biased, well, really, most of the times, almost always, the bias is in the data. The data are historical. We have had that problem for some time. So is bias, discrimination, privacy a problem that is AI specific? No. AI just adds more complications, more nuances to something we already had. It's not good news. It makes worse what was already bad, but at least we kind of, that's not a curveball, so to speak. It's just something, okay, we were not happy. Now we can be even less happy, but no, it's more bad news where some bad news were already coming. Then there's something slightly new. And again, I don't want to say, oh, unprecedented, but that we haven't discussed enough in the past. That was more like, okay, yes, but, and that is not just been exacerbated, it's been kind of a game changer here. I want to give you a couple of examples. One is our own autonomy. It's one thing to live in a world like in the 90s or in the 2000s where you had mobile phones, big data at some point, plenty of web resources. Of course, you might be monitored, geotagging of your mobile phone, etc. But there wasn't really much of an algorithm work in the sense of the AI. So we're not talking about a powerful Excel file. Okay, we're really talking about some AI that can learn from its output, so modify, increase, so machine learning essentially. Without machine learning, that world, in terms of erosion of people's autonomy, ability to decide what they like, what they don't, what they prefer, their choices, was already there, but it wasn't so stark. Today, if you think of it, we are not only bombarded by messages, but we have agents that increasingly take over and do things for us instead of us, recommends, nudge. This is the beginning, but it's just going to increase. So imagine that John or Mary, they were born today. Okay? Fast forward 18 years until they reach the age of to vote, etc. For 18 years from now on, they've been exposed to the nudging of recommended systems, the erosion of autonomy because things are done for them instead of them, etc. Well, this is a problem that is quite new. I mean, not unprecedented entirely, but you can always find something in history. But the magnitude, the nature, and we're not dealing with it carefully enough. So autonomy, the erosion of human autonomy and decision-making, always a problem. But today we have something, a new piece on the chessboard that makes it really significant. The other thing that I would say is a game changer, once again, not history is long and complex. You can always find episodes, but in somewhere at some point someone said yes, but in terms of wow, this is big now, is the whole world of content management, both in terms of say transforming society, some people, jobs, etc., and in the sense of manipulation of their content. Once again, is manipulation, like manipulation of autonomy, of ability to decide, and manipulation of the sources on the basis of which we make our decisions. So the same John or Mary, again, 18 years from now, not only they have their autonomy challenged by artificial agents, doing things for them, nudging, replacing, etc., but also the sources on which they base their decisions have been produced by those artificial agents. call it fake news, or content moderation, or content production. So imagine that I'm John or Mary, 18 years from now, and I'm reading stuff that is produced by AI. I'm not quite sure what is reliable. I don't even wonder anymore what is reliable or not. It's all like, well, it's news. Who knows? It's all a bit of good and bad. They always have an angle. They always have a. I'm being told by the AI that I like this, therefore I might like that more, and that my job would be preferably this rather than that, because that's my profile, my skills. I'm being evaluated by AI for my performance, maybe at school or for my job. I'm getting or not getting a mortgage because of AI. So, well, that is not Blade Runner, okay? This is right now. No, I want to make it 18 years from now because someone born today, not because it's happening. No, you can repeat this at any 18 years, like is for the philosophers indexical. So we can repeat that mental sort of thought experiment again and again. But someone born today would have never seen a world without digital technology, would have never seen a world without AI, without websites, without search engines, if there will be search engine in the future, without mobile phones, etc. So for that person, the autonomy of her decisions, her approach to life, and the ground on which that autonomy can be built, which is essentially information. No, better choices come from better information. If I don't know, how can I possibly choose? Or if I'm misinformed. Well, these two factors, back to your question, sorry, represent quite a novelty. So if you like, oversimplifying, imagine two blocks. One, old problems, privacy, for example, and new problems, autonomy.
And so the second example I would like to ask you about is, can AI be used by criminals and for criminal activity? And if so, could you perhaps give us one or two examples of that?
I think we know that, at least in the back of our minds, we know that organized crime not only is organized and therefore does a better job than disorganized goodness. Good people are always disorganized, the bad people, because they have a single-minded goal. They're ready to get organized in order to achieve it. But it takes a lot for the good people to get together to fight the bad people, normally, unfortunately. But back to us. Organized crime is always at the cutting edge of technology, whatever technology you have. So if it was like video recording in the past, or the telegraph, that you could find some criminal there organized to make sure that he would exploit the telegraph, the TV, the tape recording, answering machines, fake telephone calls, and so on. Fast forward today, they are at the cutting edge of using machine learning. Some examples are obvious once you think about it. For example, identity theft, meaning impersonating you, say, with your bank, and then cleaning your bank account, or buying something, etc., under your name, your credit card. So all that world used to be, if you like, a handmade kind of crime. It had to be crafted, by the individual trying to steal, sending an email that would maybe mislead you into giving details, or an SMS that looked like the bank. Today is automated massively through machine learning tools. And something that looks remarkably like an email from your bank, a telephone call that is left on your answering machine with a voice that, and this is real case, the voice of the nephew of this couple, I think it was in England. It sounded like the nephew who needed $1,000. He was in prison. I can't remember. Don't quote me on this. Anyone listening, just Google once again. But basically, the voice sounded so real. It was really in need. Boom. And the poor people just send the money and goodbye. Today, this is state of the art. It's not science fiction. It's just state of the art of organized crime. And I'm just pointing to identity theft, the whole world. Impersonification, stealing money, phishing, voice recognition, etc. The whole. Imagine then the next, just to give another example, money laundering. Well, money laundering is what once you, as well, steal the money, you need to do something with all this cash, and you don't know what to do. I mean, I know it sounds funny, but if you have, say, $5 million in cash, I wish I had that problem, but it is a problem. Like, what do you do with these bags? Well, and the police is there. It might be the FBI here, Interpol. Everybody's watching, and so you are the criminal and try to make sure that this money goes somewhere that. So strange investments, you buy and sell, you put it here. So, for example, when we hear that cryptocurrencies are used in this context, they're not AI, of course, but they belong to the whole world of digital technology. And as I said, at the forefront. When you hear, oh, criminals use cryptocurrencies, no, that's the wrong way of thinking. Criminals use every top super useful, updated, what I was looking for, technology. Yesterday, cryptocurrencies, today, machine learning, tomorrow, God knows. So, of course, new technology, new potentialities, new crime that can exploit those potentialities. And money laundering is another one. How do you actually chase where the money went and jump and then move to an account and then bought a house, then you sold the house? At some point, you lost them. So it's like chasing a ghost. So these are just two massive examples. There are more in the book where, for example, for those of you curious, I mean, smuggling drugs today is done by autonomous driven submarines, so that the Navy or the police cannot identify on the surface how the submarine is. That is the world in which we live, and these are all concrete examples. Once again, no science fiction. One of the things I try to do in the book is to make sure that the examples I provide are almost yesterday example, in order to learn from tomorrow. I try to avoid the crystal ball, one day, look at me, I'm a magician. That is something that I would recommend anyone to stay away from. You cannot predict the future. You can tell what you've done today will do to the future. No, to use Shakespeare, which seeds will grow and which will not. Yes, you can. And you can change the present so that the future is different. But just telling me, oh, what's the world is going to be like in 30 years, that is a joke.
So getting into our last topic then, since we've been talking about over the last few minutes, some of the unethical ways of using AI, let's say, what about some of the more positive ways of actually taking advantage of these kinds of technology? So in the book, you talk about the idea of AI for social good. Could you tell us about that?
Thank you. And the potentialities there are gigantic, enormous. We spoke also in the previous episode about how AI can support, for example, the SDGs, the UN Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17. We're not even remotely close to fulfill any of them. We need so much more technology, so much more power in terms of problem solving and automation of good tasks to do something good for the environment and for humanity. So potential is enormous. Summarizing, say, oh, why? Why this? Okay, well, powerful technology can do some good. But let me just summarize this in 3 steps, or if you like, 3 lines. And they are mutually compatible. Sometimes they come in a bundle. First of all, the shift from analog to digital technology makes technology a potential good friend of the environment. Analog technology tends to be an enemy of the environment, unfortunately. Think of the old fridge, the old car. You want to do something, you need to do often something bad to the environment. Pollution, consumption of resources, exploitation, etc. Essentially, the non-linearity, the linearity, the non-circularity of the past economy. You take from nature, build something, use that something, throw it away, start again. At some point, no, you ran out. And certainly nature suffers enormously. Digital technology, AI included, shifts from the management of stuff, not like consumption of stuff, to the management of information about the stuff. And this makes these 3 things that I told you a moment ago really very realistic. One, you can do so much more with so much less. A typical example is lead in terms of a home. Now, in the previous house, we're still building our house here, so to speak. We just moved a few months ago to Yale. But in the previous house, I replaced every bulb with LEDs. It's expensive at the beginning, but in the long run is good for the environment and good in terms of your pocket. It means that you are doing so much more in terms of how much light you get and the kind of light you get with a fraction of consumption of the energy. Now, of course, there are plenty of problems now, how you build the LEDs, etc. So nothing is as simple as it looks, but you can see the direction. Do so much more with so much less. Another example is a smart thermostat. I mean, if you scale this up to a whole smart city or a whole company, when Google decided to use DeepMind algorithms, which were the same kind of neural networks or machine learning that had been used to win at chess, Go, etc., to cut their energy consumption, they did that, of course. No, it's good for the environment. It's also very good for your pocket. They cut that 20% of consumption of a company of that size. You imagine how much benefit that can generate in terms of less production of energy, better use of energy. So, number one, AI enables us to do so much more with so much less. I don't need to warm up the whole house if I'm not here Saturday and Sunday, or I don't need to warm up the whole, say, top floor, the upstairs and downstairs if I'm not upstairs in the morning and downstairs, etc. Huge. So more with much, much less. Then we can start doing things differently from the way we used to do them. I mean, something, for example, in terms of we know famous the protein folding, that which is the ABC of any development in pharmaceutical products, had to be done by hand, by scientists, etc. Once you have a machine learning solution, that becomes so much easier. It's not that you stop doing it; you're doing differently, and the differently means wow, enormous savings, enormous potentialities. And I'm talking about this particular the protein folding. But if you look at the development of quantum computing, which will be again an enormous step forward, or cold fusion, essentially the energy that we get from the sun on this planet, it will not be possible unless AI gives a big hand there in terms of super fast, super powerful, super smart calculations of all the data that is. So supercomputing in terms of quantum computing, cold fusion, developments in the protein folding onwards. These are just concrete examples. I mean, as we speak, where AI can help us by doing things differently to improve enormously, the much, much better management of our environment and our society. And then I said 3, so the third is coming, is to do things for the first time ever. Things that we didn't think were even remotely possible. Now, if we're going to have some solutions, which I wish I could give you examples, because it's like, oh, what is outside the box? I don't know, but I know that there is something outside the box, meaning that we will use AI to do things that until yesterday we thought, oh, I didn't even think that was remotely possible. Now, of course, we have some examples which are not so kind of far-fetched, more illustrations like in terms of medical applications. I mean, today, increasingly, we are developing chips that you are already implanting in human brains for things like epilepsy, to help with difficulties that maybe age, cognitive difficulties, or motor difficulties that age inevitably generates, or maybe other causes. Now, we could see something, that's just an analogy, because I said we can't predict the future, so I'm not trying to do what I said you cannot. But I can tell that this doing something for the first time, that's what normally technology enables to do. We never thought about doing that, and all of a sudden, oops, there you are. We never thought we could actually really fly in a few hours from New York to London and backwards. Today, just normal. So it's not just unimaginable, but concretely what the engineering will look like. So these 3 things back, much more with much less, differently, so way more intelligently, effective, and for the first time. This is AI for good, AI in support of society and the environment. Final, I'm afraid, remark on this is that we are not investing enough in these three directions. We do it only when it's going to lead to some immediate profit. Like, for example, I cut this because I know my bill will be lower, or I can sell this product, or I'm not going to be, so to say, liable for this particular problem. We should do this, all this, three sort of steps in the right direction, because we have an environment that we are destroying, and we have a society that is so unfair. So if we want to fix a little bit our environment and improve our society, AI must be our ally. And it can be. Time to get a move.
Great. So, Dr. Floridi, I'm starting to get mindful of your time. So perhaps this is a good point to end the interview on. And the book is, again, The Ethics of Artificial Intelligence, Principles, Challenges, and Opportunities. I'm leaving a link to it in the description box of the interview, and also links to our other interviews, particularly the previous one. I mean, it ties very well with this one, because we talked about some of the same topics, but applied to the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. So just very quickly, would you like to mention again where people can find your work on the internet, and perhaps tell us a little bit about the work you're doing now at the Digital Ethics Center at Yale University?
Yes, indeed. Thank you. And for anyone who is, I hope, enjoying this interview, thank you so much for the opportunity. But also remember, look at the date, because what I'm going to say comes with the best before. As we speak, while we're having this interview, the center is being set up. We are creating the webpage, opening the boxes. We need to buy a few lamps. We need to hire people, get the administration running. The research is being shaped. So from the tiny little thing of a new lamp on the desk, all the way to who will be developing which projects of, I hope, great value within the center. Anything is in development is an exciting time. Please do get in touch. All you need to look for eventually is my email, is my name.surname@yale.edu. So luciano.floridi@yale.edu. If you want to contribute, or if you want to interact with the center, we are open to business, as they say. We are open to scholarly business anytime. Research is what we do, and we believe in making the world a better place by understanding it better and providing better solutions. So philosophy with some impact, that's what I hope we're going to provide. It's a big task, and we need all the help we can possibly get. So if you want to help, or you want to collaborate, the door is open. Get in touch.
Great. So, Dr. Floridi, thank you so much again for taking the time to come on the show. As I said at the beginning, it's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Not at all. A pleasure. Not only mine, but certainly mine as well. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thank you for watching this interview until the end. If you like what I'm doing, please consider supporting the show on Patreon or PayPal. You can find the links in the description box down below. And if you like the interview, please share it, leave a like, hit the subscription button and comment. This show is brought to you by Enlights Learning and Development Done Differently. Check their website at enlights.com. I would also like to give a huge thank you to my main patrons and PayPal supporters: Pererga Larsen, Jerry Mueller, Hans Frederick Sunda, Bernardo Seixas, Olaf Alex, Adam Kessel, Matthew Whittingbird, Arno Wolf, Tim Hollis, Henrik Alenia, John Connors, Philip Forrest Connolly, Dan Demetrio, Robert Windiger, Rui Inácio, Zup, Marco Neves, Colin Holbrook, Phil Kavanagh, Michael Stormer, Samuel Andrea, Francis Ford, Tiago Nunes, Fergal Cusson, Harl Herzog, Nuno Machado, Jonathan Librant, João Linhares, Stanton T, Samuel Correia, Eric Hines, Mark Smith, João Eira, Tom Hummel, Sardas France, David Sloan Wilson, Yassi Lades Araújo, Ruben Roach, Diego Londonio Correia, Yannick Punter, Adana Rusmani, Charlotte Bliss, Nicola Barbaro, Adam Hunt, Pavel Ostaszewski, Nelek Bach, Guy Madison, Gary G. Hallman, Sam Afzal, Adrian Yegi, Paulo Tolentino, João Barbosa, Julian Price, Edward Hall, Edin Bronner, Douglas Frey, Franca Bortolotti, Gabriel Ponce Cortez, Ursula Litzke, Scott, Zachary Fish, Tim Duffy, Sonny Smith, John Wiseman, Daniel Friedman, William Buckner, Paul George Arnaud, Luke Loaki, Georgios Theophanos, Chris Williamson, Peter Wolozin, David Williams, Diogo Costa, Anton Erickson, Charles Murray, Alex Shaw, Amaury Martinez, Coralie Chevalier, Bangalore Atheists, Larry D. Lee Jr., Old Herrigbon, Starry, Michael Bailey, Dan Sperber, Robert Grassi, Zigor N, Jeff McMahon, Jake Zool, Barnabas Radix, Mark Campbell, Thomas Dobner, Luke Neeson, Chris Story, Kimberly Johnson, Benjamin Galbart, Jessica Nowicki, Linda Brandon, Nicholas Carlson, Ismael Benzliman, George Coriatis, Valentin Steinman, Perk Rowley, Kate Von Goller, Alexander Hubbard, Liam Dunaway, BR, Masoud Ali Mohammadi, Perpendicular, Jonas Hertner, Ursula Goodenough, Gregory Hastings, David Pinsoff, Sean Nelson, and Mike Levine. A special thanks to my producers, Isar Webb, Jim Frank, Lucas Stafiniak, Tom Vanagdam, Bernard Ugni, Curtis Dixon, Benedict Mueller, Thomas Trumbull, Catherine and Patrick Tobin, John Carlo Montenegro, Alnick Ortiz, and Nick Golden, and to my executive producers, Matthew Lavender, Sergio Adriano, Bogdan Kanivets, and Rosie. Thank you for all.